Hello and welcome to a couple of Switch. In the last combo video I just released with Alt S, a couple of people, as you can see over here, asked how the deck profile and how many tamers and such I played in the deck, so why not just make a deck profile. But not only will I be making a deck profile of my version of Alt S, I'm also going to do a section after mine, so if you don't have access to all of the cards and you perhaps want to try out a budget version of this deck, I do have a couple of suggestions for that. Even a version which is Ultimate Cup legal, where every single card is black. So if you want to see the deck in action, I would actually suggest watching the combo video I put out like 2 days ago, link in the description. It's actually a great guide to what the deck is supposed to do and how the effects work in context, so take a look at it. But let's get into the deck profile. So for our eggs we play a playset of the EX for Omnimon. These were created for the Alter S deck specifically. Your turn once per turn with one of your other Digimon Digivolts, you draw 1, so it's some extra card draw for the gimmick the deck is going for. Then we play a playset of Agumon and a playset of Gabumon. So these are the main boys of the deck, your main searchers. They have a great inheritable. When one of your other Digimon Digivolts, you gain 1 memory. Hopefully when the combo goes off, you have both of these as your sources, because that's a guaranteed 2 memory back in total if you pull off the combo. They're also your main search. You reveal the top 3 card. You can either add a Greymon or a Garurumon depending on this Agumon or Gabumon you're playing, and then they can take up one of the opposite cards. So Gabumon takes Agumon, Greymon and Omnimon, and Agumon picks up Gabumon, Garurumon and Omnimon to hand. And something to keep in mind, they place it back on the top of the library, not at the bottom. So hopefully you will always double draw from what you reveal so you don't get stuck with what you have at the top of your deck. But thankfully we are actually playing a couple of cards that help with that. 2 BT12 Agumons. On play, reveal top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 Digimon card with Greymon or Omnimon in its name and 1 Tamer card with Taikame in its name among them to your hand. Place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. So if you're stuck with what you have at the top of your deck, he can flush them down to the bottom while taking either a Greymon or Omnimon, which we have in the deck, and our main tamer, Taikame. He's inheritable. While this Digimon has Greymon or Omnimon in his name, it gets 1000 DP is relevant actually, because it means that Blitz Greymon will become a 13k blocker and smasher, and having Omnimon as a 16k beater is also pretty good. Then I also play 2 copies of Agumon X Antibody. The reason why I play him is for the same reason as the BT12 Agumon. If we don't like what's at the top of our deck, we can Digivolve for 0 on an Agumon to reveal the top 3, and then we can take 1 card with Greymon and then put the rest at the bottom of our deck. There's also another great use of the Agumon X Antibody that we can do, since the Agumon and Gabumon inheritables, and the Tsunimon as well, will proc even if we evolve on a Digimon 4-0, meaning that we can draw a card and gain memory before we pop off into our combo. And if you have a complete Alter S on field with the Agumon and Gabumon inheritables, Digivolving from an Agumon into an Agumon X Antibody will gain you 2 memory and draw you a card, which is pretty handy, because that meant that I could have then gone into an Alter B without passing turn. And a thing to note as well, sadly the Agumon BT12 cost 1 on a level 2 to Digivolve, which sometimes can be awkward, but sometimes also great. If you plan accordingly, you can choke your opponent at 1 sometimes, but most often than not you want him to be your Nokia target. Then I play a playset of Greymon and Garurumon. Just as the rookies, they are mandatory in the deck and are your main boys to get off the combo of going into the Alter S. They bounce off of each other with their 1 Digivolving effects and also gives reboot. And then I play 2 copies of Greymon BT12. Just like the BT12 Agumon, getting that plus 1000 DP can be great on both Blitz and Omnimon, but also his when Digivolving effect, we can play out 1 Tamer with Taikame in its name from our hand for free, and our main Tamer has Taikame in its name, and getting that Tamer out for free in this deck is huge value, because the entire focus on the deck is actually searching for all of your pieces for then you to pop off. So just playing the Tamer sometimes, especially if you get it a bit later, is always going to be a bit awkward, but if you can play it out for free with the Greymon, you're always going to have a good time. Then I play a playset of Metal Greymon and a playset of Were Garurumon. Just as the Greymon and Garurumon, they bounce off each other, making them go into each other for a reduced cost, also giving inherited blocker and also having blocker. So in certain matchups it's actually pretty decent just to go into a vanilla blocker with either DP+, reboot, gaining memory and drawing cards for you to pop off the turn after. Like, the game has evolved quite a lot, there's more effects, more interaction, but it's actually funny that sometimes you getting out an 7 or 8k blocker sometimes really does mess with your opponent's plan for one turn, meaning that you actually can get the dude out earlier instead of just cowering in the breeding zone. Then I play 3 copies of Blitz Greymon and 4 copies of Kresgarurumon. And before you ask, the reason why I play a playset of Kresgarurumon but not the Blitz Greymon is in hindsight actually pretty obvious, because we have far more effects in our deck that actually searches for Greymon with the BT12 and X Antibody Agumon, so finding him is far easier than the Kresgarurumon. And then the main boy, the big boy himself, Omnimon Alter S, one of the most beautiful cards of all time. And let me tell you, I'm very happy I pulled not only one from one of my booster boxes, but also from the sealed event we were playing when the set came out. As you could see in the combo video, when this boy comes out, your opponent is in big trouble. But not only is our top end pretty huge, our top end has a top end as well. We play 2 copies of Omnimon Alter B. And the reason why I play 2 copies of the Alter B is that I actually realized in the playtesting, just simply evolving your level 6 into the Omnimon Alter B is out of itself pretty amazing, because you digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon by 3 stages, then delete any amount of Digimon with a total of play cost 6. So most of the time that means that it's going to remove pretty much any stack that your opponent has, and then you have a 15k blocker rebooter with whichever inheritable of these, preferably the Blitz Greymon, since it trashes your opponent's security, and then you can still proc the Omnimon Alter B's effect, that even though you don't trash resources, you can trash 2 of your opponent's securities, just discarding the single level 6 to destroy, well, the only tamer they have on field, the only Digimon they have on field, is pretty insane. But I do understand the Omnimon Alter B can be very expensive for a lot of people if you do not feel that you either have the money or want to play him just because you want to try out the deck. So stay tuned for the alternatives and the budget suggestions after the profile. And then moving into the tamers, I play 3 copies of Matashida and Taikamiya. This tamer is amazing, but it has some very specific uses. But the actual point of the tamer is that you can start the combo from the breeding, because you can proc its effect to play out either an Agumon or a Gabumon, depending if you evolve into Garurumon or a Greymon. And since you resolve all of those effects before you resolve the Greymon-Garurumon effect, you can start the combo from just one Digimon. So you wanted to see these either as early as possible, or hopefully in the combination with the BT12 Greymon so you can play it out for free. And if you can see it in your security, you are going to be flying. And talking about that, I play 2 copies of my girl, Nokia. I did play 3 copies before. I do miss playing 3 copies because she's so good in this deck. It's just, oh, it's so great. Because you do want to play your rookies out on the field to do its effect to draw and search. And she costs just as much to play out as the rookies, and her effect to reduce can be immediately used, makes her such a good card. And and let me tell you, the amount of times that Nokia has gotten out of the security made me be able to play out a Gabumon or Agumon from hand for free, and then just absolutely steamrolling the turn after because my opponent wasn't counting on that happening. Has been so many times. Nokia is amazing in the deck. I truly just wish I had an excuse to play 4 of her, but that wouldn't be good, so I have to control myself. And then I play 3 copies of Black Memory Boost. Sometimes it's going to be hard. You're not going to find your pieces, you're going to be stuck where you are, and it looks very gloomy. Like you're not maybe going to be able to advance your game plan, and most often than not that means that the tempo is off and you're going to lose. But thankfully we have the Black Memory Boost that does not only make us be able to have an easier time to pop off the turn that we do by gaining the memory, we're also searching for the pieces and putting the cards that we put at the top of our deck at the bottom. So yes, that's my deck profile. I've come both first and second place at my locals with this deck, and a lot of people at my locals are scared of the deck because they have seen the deck pop off far too many times. Because the deck is not a meme, people. It is not a meme. It is actually good. It's won against Bloom Lord, Black War, War Greymon, Dark Knight, Blue Flare, Hunters, Security Control, Armor Rush, Machine Dramon. Like, it's done well for itself. So now let's take a look at some variations of the deck that you can build. Either preference choices, budget, or if you just want to do something completely different. But first, I'm going to put up all of the cards that I would say is mandatory. Like, if you want to play the Alter S deck, you are going to be forced to play these cards. So this is what I would consider the core of the deck. Like, whatever your opinion is on Alter S, this is probably what's mandatory to have in the deck in the beginning. Because some people actually prefer playing free of the level 6s, because sometimes you really do flood out with the higher end cards when you're not finding the others, so that does make sense. So there's currently 33 cards on the board, meaning that we have 17 cards free for us to put whatever we want in the deck. So in my opinion, I do think the BT12 Agumon is the better choice to have. And I do understand that sometimes the one cost is quite annoying to deal with if that's the only rookie you have on hand. And some people might not want to play the X-Antibody either. I've seen multiple lists that doesn't play the X-Antibody and instead play 4 copies of the Agumon. But if you don't have access to any of these cards, you could technically play the BT8 Agumon if that's what the only thing you have. His on-play effect also reveals the top 4 cards of your deck, but you can only add a Greymon. We do not have a Dragon King in the deck, but if you find the one cost on BT12 Agumon annoying, this could be a great alternative because it works with the Nokia. You can evolve Agumon X-Antibody on top of him as well. But I do think that the inheritable of the BT12 Agumon is so good, and the fact that it gets our Tamer and Omnimon just makes it superior. So an interesting thing I've seen people play in Japan is the BT12 Metal Greymon. If you evolve into the Vergarurumon to then digivolve one of your other Digimons into a Metal Greymon, you could evolve into this guy for just 1 cost. Then you can raid, and when you change targets, you could, for example, play out the Matishida and Takemiya for free, which then gives the deck another chance for you to play out that card without paying its memory cost. And notably, it would give Blitz, Alter S and Alter B piercing for what it's worth. And talking about Tamers, we could also play Izumi, the good old boy from BT4. This guy is never going to go away. This is always going to be a good card, I swear. On play, reveal the top 3 cards. Then you place the cards back on the top of your library. If they're all black, you gain 1 memory. So this is great coming out of the security, so you can gain 1 memory since we play mostly black cards. It's good for information and that you get control of what you're going to draw. And you could also technically play it out with the BT12 Metal Greymon's effect. We could also play Black Tie, the old one. You could play him out for free with the BT12 Greymon and BT12 Metal Greymon. He would make your Blitz Greymon and Kreskarumon 13k blockers on your opponent's turn. So he's at least decent in the deck. And talking about not probably the best tamer, but pretty funny, we could play Takemiya and Matishida in the deck. It would give Alter S and Alter B a security attack +1, which is okay. You also gain 2 memory if your opponent controls a level 6 or higher. And we could of course play the BT12 Takemiya as well. It can give one of our Agumons or Greymons 1000 DP plus and blocker, which is not really relevant most of the time. It could give it to Blitz Greymon as well, making me be able to swing without being afraid of him dying in security. What's important here is that we can suspend him to gain a memory when we evolve into a Greymon or an Omnimon, meaning that if you have Alter S in the field, even if our opponent has choked us to 1, we can evolve into the Alter B, suspending to gain a memory to keep turn and swing for game. We also got the option card of Adse Beastblade and Shining Dragon Bullet. Well, that's a mouthful. The card is created for this deck. I've tried it out. I didn't really like it that much, but I do see why some people play it. If you have a Blitzgreymon on field, you can digivolve one of your Digimon, regardless of what level it is, into a Crescarurumon on the other way around. So if you have these bricky flooded hands, missing a level 5 for example, you can play this, get into the Crescarurumon, Jogress into the Ultra, so forth. It also has the Nokia effect, that if it gets played from the security, you play out a Gabumon or Agumon from your hand or trash, which is good, and then you take it to your hand. So I could actually see playing one copy in my deck if I didn't play 2 Alter Bs. Sometimes I've seen positions where I could have used this card, but I felt more times that when I had it on hand, it wasn't very relevant. I would have preferred something else instead. And getting into the top end, we could play Omnimon Merciful Mode as a finisher. He can digivolve on Alter S just like Alter B, but instead we delete one of our opponent's Digimon for level 6 under Merciful Mode. So if we have Alter S, Blitzgreymon and Crescarurumon, we could delete a couple of Digimons. It's honestly a pretty decent alternative. And honestly, I think the right choice would be to play 4 copies of the Black Memory Boost in this deck. I can't let Alter B or my Nokias go. In the future though, it's going to look pretty different. Training cards come to the west. This deck will benefit from playing those quite a lot. So I could see a version of the deck where you play a playset of the Black Memory Boost and a playset of the training cards. It would make this deck so much more consistent and far more dangerous the turn when we pop off. But now for the funny part. There is technically a version of this deck I built, which is actually Ultimate Cup legal, and is that instead of, let's say you do not have the Alter SS, and you have no Alter B, no Alter S. What do you do with this deck to actually make it mono black? Well, it's quite simple actually. We play Ragnar Lordmon instead. Because Crescarurumon and Blitzgreymon does not specify in their effects you can DNA Digivolve with one of your other Digimons. It doesn't say Alter S. Since we have the red and the black on field, we could technically Jogress into the Ragnar Lordmon, and since this combo always has a lot of Digimon in its sources, that pretty much means that we will always trash 2 securities with the Ragnar Lordmon effect. Swing, unsuspend, swing again. That's 4 damage 1 turn. In that version, you could play a playset of the Izumi and a playset of Black Memory Boost, and boom, we do have a pretty good synergistic and consistent deck. However, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this deck profile and my little extra part here at the end. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a like, a subscribe, and comment down below what you thought, and have a really good day now. Bye bye!